There was a government official here who told us that the building had been hit by at least one missile, and while he was talking to us, parts of what people were saying was a missile was being pulled out of the building. The parts they were pulling out were still warm. One of them had a manufacture date from the 29th of November 2006, and they look very similar to cruise missile parts that I've seen in other conflicts in Iraq and in the Balkans as well. So although we can't confirm what hit the building and what destroyed the building, it also coincides, it coincides the timing with an explosion that we heard earlier and smoke we saw rising from this compound area earlier on in the evening. We were told it was hit about 2.5 hours ago, and that was when we heard loud anti-aircraft gunfire, then heard an explosion, and then saw smoke rising from this area. Although when we got to the building, it wasn't smoking, but this was a 4-story building that appeared to have had 2 large circular holes punched in the roof. The roof completely collapsed. Many of the roofs blown out. Heavy reinforced concrete reinforced with thick rebar, metal rods, all collapsed and twisted. A government official told us that no one was injured in this blast. But they say that they can't understand why this happened, because they say Pentagon spokesman had said that the compound belonging to Muammar Gadhafi would not be targeted, and this building is inside, very much inside that compound.
Okay, so Nick, you're there and you're seeing the damage and destruction, but again, no sign of Muammar Gadhafi, and it is the top of the hour, 7 p.m. Eastern here in the U.S. Our Nick Robertson, again, is reporting live. Nick is inside of Muammar Gadhafi's compound where he says a building has been hit and destroyed. Nick Robertson, continue. Update our viewers, please.
Well, what the government has done now is invite a huge number of their loyalists into this area, flooded this area now with loyalists, with playing sort of songs that are very pro-Gadhafi. Some of them have been written just for Gadhafi in the past few weeks. The government has brought us here to show us this building, to show us that it was how heavily it has been damaged. But again, I have to say it's impossible for us to independently verify exactly what happened. But it certainly looks to me, and I've seen a number of buildings in the past that have been struck by cruise missiles, it certainly looks like a building that's been hit by heavy missiles. And it appears to be very much in the area where we saw smoke rising and heard it loud, at least one loud explosion coming from just a couple of hours ago. Some of the parts of the missile system that I was handed that were taken out of the building were still quite warm. It's a chilly night. They appear to be pulled out from underneath the rubble. If they'd been lying there for some time, it would have been cold, but these missile parts still appear to be warm.
And so, Nick, can you describe for us this compound? How many buildings, and exactly the building that was destroyed? What is it used for? What does it look like? How big is it?
This is a very large compound area with multiple security entrances to it. The area where the music is blasting out from right now is the same building that U.S. bombs targeted in 1986 in retaliation for a Libyan attack on a disco in Berlin that killed American service members. It is perhaps, the building that's been targeted this time is perhaps 100 to 200 yards away from that building. But there are many, many buildings in this compound, and one thing that was pointed out to us was what was described as the famous tent where Muammar Gadhafi entertained visitors. We were told this was the place Muammar Gadhafi just a few days ago met with the Russian, Chinese, and Indian ambassadors just in a few days before the UN Security Resolution was passed. There's no evidence that Muammar Gadhafi is here at this time, but we are told that this is an area that he uses as his main residential area inside Tripoli. And I talked to somebody here who knows Tripoli very well, and he tells me that just a few weeks ago it would have been unthinkable for normal Libyans to be allowed in this area, and the government has invited them in. This was a compound like Saddam Hussein's compounds in Iraq, compounds that nobody ever went into because these were the compounds of the leader. It's hard for me to estimate the size of the compounds here, but it's perhaps a couple of square miles at least. I'm looking at an area now, at least the size of a large baseball field that's adjacent to the building that was hit this evening. It appeared to be a strike, a missile strike, probably two missiles. They appear to be cruise missiles. A strike right into the heart of Gadhafi's house compound in the middle of Tripoli, the capital. So this is very a strike. It seems, if not to be targeting him, to be a very clear message that he is in the crosshairs at the moment. It's not clear why his compound area would be targeted in an effort to enforce a no-fly zone and to enforce the security and safety of what we were looking at, a building, a fourth-story building, a large, heavy, strong concrete building. The rebar that was reinforcing the concrete, at least some of it perhaps close to as thick as my wrist. So this was a very, very strong building. Two holes punched in the roof. The roof collapsed down forwards across perhaps two floors. The lower floors very heavily damaged, rubble strewn over an area of perhaps 100 and 150 yards. So a lot of damage to a strong building. It will have a psychological impact on him, and he will try to use the destruction of this building to his advantage. He'll try to use it to demonstrate, as I think the reason they brought us here this evening. They had an hour and a half before these missiles struck redeclared a ceasefire, albeit their first ceasefire was held no water whatsoever. It wasn't being observed. And they will also probably use this to say, as indeed the government spokesman said a few minutes ago, he asked me why the Pentagon spokesman said that this area wouldn't be targeted, yet it is being targeted. So we're likely going to hear this again several times, I would imagine. Does it change anything in terms of enforcing a no-fly zone? Does it change anything in terms of sort of degrading command and control? Does it have any impact in terms of degrading air defenses? It's not clear. It didn't appear to be a building that was covered in antennas or had a lot of cabling in it that one might associate with command and control, but it's very difficult for us to make an assessment in the dark, as we've been here in the dark.